Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, the Sanhedrin daf Pei Beis. We're going to begin on the bottom of Pei Alpha and Beis by the Mishnah. Says the Masnisen, Hagoiniv es ha-kasua, a person who steals, Rashi just says, Mafarish Megmar, it's going to be Klishares from the Beis Hamikdash. Also, Makalel B'Kaisim, a person who curses, and we'll see exactly what that means, but kaisem, and v'haboyel aramis, a person who has tashmish with an aramis, and Rashi says this is a basa v'kachavim, this is the daughter of an avikachavim, so kanayin poiginbo. And we're going to be spending a lot of time learning about what happened with Pinchas, that we say kanayin poiginboy, that because he was zealous in the sin that was being committed, he was able to step up. So on this, the Megrolis Yom asked the Kasha, what if it's a Jewish woman with a goy? So the Mordechai says it makes no difference, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's not the same, since the birth would be a Jewish woman. So if in fact she would get pregnant, the child would be Jewish. So on some regards, perhaps a man with a bas of kachavim with a goita is worse. Kayin shishimesh betuma ein achav hakohanim avino isla beistin. So a kayin who is meshamish with tuma, and we'll see exactly what is going on over here. So the din is that the kohanim don't bring him to beistin. El pirchei kohanim oitzin oisu chutz lazara. The pirchei kohanim themselves will take him out. Maftsian es moichai bigzirin. Literally, they'll crack open his head with board clubs, which in the military is called a code red. Zar sheshimesh b'mikdash. You have a non-Kohen who works in the base of Mikdash. Rabbi Kiva Omer b'chenek v'chomer b'midishamayim. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So my kansu. This all has to do with vigilantism. So what exactly is this first case of Kanayin Pogimbo? So Rabbi Yehuda Klisharis. The pasuk says "V'skasois ha-nesach." This is by the lechem upon him, the hollow pipes, and that's one of the klisharis. The person shouldn't go in to see the objects that are uncovered, and if you do, then you'll die. So the point is that it's a terrible level of disrespect. Not just you steal something, but to steal from the base of Mikdash, to take those items, Kanayin Poigimbo. Hamakawel B'Kaisim. So what exactly is this curse? So Tanu Rabbi Yosef, a person who blasphemes and says Yaka Kaisim is Kaismoi, using this language. Says Rashi Shemakawel Klapi Malo B'Kaisim, that you curse toward Hashem. Yaka HaKaisim Zes Kaismo Hainu Klapi Mailish Nos Ksomim He'elu Beliboy. So you're basically cursing God. Rabban v'Tema Rabba Barmari Amri Yakeu Kaisim Lo Ulakaino Ulamaknoi. That you basically saying that we should slay the person, his master, and his provider. Okay. So with this, we're presented the question, especially as we saw before about Kippah. What exactly is the difference when we talk about kares in yesterday's daf and misa b'dishamayim? So the Bartanura says that kares still needs tshuva, but misa b'dishamayim you're totally machaper. Rashi says kares means dying without children. Yerushalmi says kares is 50 years. B'dishamayim is 60. The Rambam says kares means even olam haba. V'aboyel ramis. So bomini Rav Kahanim Merav, as we continue to pay Beis Amud Aleph. So lo pagu boy kanoyin mahu, says Rashi, ma oynish bedavar. What if in fact nothing happens? You weren't murdered, you weren't killed, you just happened to be boil a goita, and what's the din? So in Shaya Rav Lagamri, so apparently he had forgotten what he learned from his teacher regarding this matter. Akruhu Rav Kahana b'chalmei, and it came to him in a dream, the pasuk Bigdi Yehuda v'toeva Nasa Yisrael Yerushalayim, that he rebelled and it was an abomination what was done in Israel and Yerushalayim. Kichol Yehuda, that he made profane. Kodesh Hashem asher ohav, and then it says Ubal bas El Nechar. He was boil, the daughter of an El Nechar, of a strange god, which is an interesting, when we say Avodas Kachavim, is it referring to idol worshiper, someone who's mamish and Avodas Kachavim, which is linked to the Baal Peor, or is it Stam Agoita, which is based on here, it's not so poshut, because again we have this drush, it's a bas el nechar, so it could be that this nos is linked to Avodah Zarah, which also makes it perhaps worse. Okay, so on this, the Gemara continues. Also, Omerle Hachi Akroin. This is what the pasuk Ad Krei Rav Gamri. Now I remember what he taught me. Big the Yehuda Zovas Chachavim. That's referring to Avodah Zarah. V'cheinu Omer Kain Gadtem Bi Beis Yisrael Noam Hashem, that they rebelled against me. The Toeva Nasmi Yisrael Yerushalayim Ze Mishkav Zachar V'cheinu Omer Ves Zachar Lu Tishka Mishkav Isha Toeva He. So usually we link the word Toeva to someone who has Mishkav Zachar. Ki Chol Yehuda Chol Kodesh Hashem Zu Zayna. This is referring to a person who is with Zayna. Says Rashi, a woman who is Mufkeres Yafil Yisraelis, even if she's a Yid. V'cheinu Omer Lo Si Kadesh, that a woman should not be a Zona. Which Rashi says is mafkir kedushasai, that you lose your sanctity. Ubal bas el nechar zehabal kusis. So this is referring to a person who's boil al hakusis, which is your boil bas el nechar. So voksib basrei, and it says afterwards yachreis Hashem leisha asher yasena or v'oina, that this person will be cut off. The person who is a son who answers, Melohei Yaakov, Umagish mincha lahashem savachos. So im Talmid Chacham hu loyeloi b'chachamim, that if in fact you are Talmid Chacham, you're not going to have children that are going to be Talmid Chachamim. V'oine b'talmidim, that you'll be like without, and you'll be without students. Im kayin hu lo yihel lo yiben mag, you're not going to have children. If you're kayin, so you won't be blessed with children. Makish minchal Hashem savakos. Okay, so the Maharsha that understands what does it mean arba oina 2 times. Okay, so the Margosiam actually asks, why did Rav see this in his dream? What is the point of that? Ein Margosiam. Avuya kohabal kusis, and who has relations with a kusis, kilu mi maschatan be'avetz kachavim. It's like you are connecting and having a relationship with idol worship. Does an idol have a daughter? And therefore, again, there's this link between Tashmish with a kusis and Avodah Zarah. So, according to that, it's mashma. Even if she's not an Avodas Kachavim, the reality is it's ki'il like you're Avodas Kachavim. The Yom Rav Chia Baravua Kosuv al Gilgalto Shel Yehoyakim. It's written on the skull of Yehoyakim the words Zois Oid Acheres, this punishment and that of another. So Yehoyakim was one of the last kings of Malchi Yehuda. He was greedy and spilled innocent blood. This was Yehoyakim. So it says on his skull, Zoislas Voidacheres. Zekino de Rabbi Preda. So the grandfather, Rabbi Preda, Ashkach Kahu Gulgolta, he chanced upon the skull, Dehavi Shadi Bishar Yerushalayim, Vahavi Kosav Lahizod Vosacheres. It was actually exactly what it said, this and something else. Kavra, he buried it. V'hadar navoik, and then it was dug up. Kavra, buried again. V'hadar navoik. He kept crying to bury him because he needed a proper burial, and for some reason, the burial didn't work. Omer Haigel Golta Shel Yehoyakim. It must be that this is the skull of Yehoyakim. D'chsibei Kavruas Chamor Yikaver, that it will be comparable to the burial of a donkey, which obviously that those bones will not necessarily be buried properly. So chayiv the hishlach malahal asher Yerushalayim. They'll be drawn through the skull to the gates of Yerushalayim. Omer malkahu v'loy arach aro livzuye. So you said, understand, this is a king. This was one of the last kings of Malchi Yehuda. It's not proper that he should be embarrassed. So Shakla Karcha B'Shiroi, he covered up the skull in silk. Va'isiva B'Sifta, and he put it into a box. I see the Besu, so his wife chanced upon it. Chazisi, when she found the box, Nafka, she took it out. Amra Lahu, so she told her neighbors, Lishivusa, Amri, so the neighbor said, Amri Lahai the Isasa Kamaisahi. This may actually have been the skull of your husband's first wife, Deloka Manshila, that he can't forget her. So, which is pretty unbelievable, that's probably she's like, what do? I found a skull. So yeah, it's probably your husband's first wife, and he just doesn't want to forget her, which is unbelievable. Again, she gartu a tanur v'kalta, so she put it into like a pot and burnt it up. That must be the pshat when it said zois sacheres. First of all, this skull is going to not be able to be buried, and then something else happens to it also. So on this, Rav Chaim Oizer asks about cremation. What's the din? This sounds like a form of cremation. And can these ashes be buried in a Beis HaKvaros, in a Jewish cemetery? So the Beis Yitzchak says that by Tches HaMesim, he is koifer be'ikr, and the Torah says kover tikvarenu, that you have to bury him. It is possible, it's roy, still to bury the Afar Hames, but not in a Beis HaKvaros. So this shows it is wrong to do. Okay, so I wrote over here. Anyway, Kiyasa Rav Dimi, it's an interesting question by itself. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, Amar Beis Dino Shel Chashmonai. So it said regarding the Chashmonaim in their courts, that they made the following gzera, especially because there was a lot of Hellenism and there was probably potential intermarriage. Hobala kusis. They said if you have tashmish with a kusis, which potentially could lead to having children, and then again other problems. Chayiv lehem mishum nashga. You're going to be chayiv 4 different things. Says Rashi, Nida, Afopi Shadam Kusis Kadam Behema, even though she's not really a Nida, Mikol Maka Mius, the Chil Kedushas Hashemhu. So therefore that's what the nun is. Shin is Shivcha, Shika Shivcha Etzle. She's like a maidservant. Shenechnesis Israel Gevira Nikris. Okay, she's considered like a mistress. Gimel is Avodas Kochavim, it says Lotischasim Bam. And then you have the Aleph, which is Eishes Ish. Rashi says V'lo Mamish, the Kedushin Leisahu. There's no din Kedushin over here because you're not really marrying her. Umihu Eishes Ish Damya V'chayiv L'farish Lifresh Himena Shlihi Rugel B'Eishes Ish. We don't want you to be Rugel in Eishes Ish. Okay. So the idea is that if you have tashmish with a guy, so even though it's not Eishes Ish technically, because there's no din kedushin by them, but by doing this act, you're going to be rugel in doing this, in which you can eventually commit real Eishes Ish with a married woman, Jewish woman. Kiyas Rabin Aimer Mishum Nashgaz. So you have Nida, Shivcha, Goya, and instead of Eishes Ish, it's Zaina. Nida Shivcha Goya Zaina. There's no din ishus by a kutis. The idach. So why does it say Goya? Eishes Ish. Nishayhu vade lo mifkari. The Goya's wife, he certainly is not going to be mafker. So even though it's not really Eishes Ish, but the fact is, if she is linked to another man, the man's not mafker her, and therefore because of that, it taka is like Eishes Ish. Amrav Chista, Haba Limloich, a person asks, should I kill this guy for what he's doing, being with a kutit? Ein marin boy. We don't paskin that he should do that. We're not going to tell him that he should be a vigilante. Idmar nami Amar Rabba B'Merchana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Habal Limoich Ein Morin Lo. We're not going to tell him to do it. If he does it, he does it. But we're not going to tell him, yeah, you should. And furthermore, not only that, Ella Shim Pirish Zimri, if Zimri would have stopped having relations with this woman, V'hargu Pinchas Neragolov. Pinchas would have been considered a murderer. It was only because they were engaged in the act of Tashmish. That's when Pinchas was allowed to do this. Nepach Zimri, if Zimri turned V'hargu Pinchas and actually killed Pinchas, Ein Neragolov Sharaidafu. So because Pinchas really didn't have the legal right through a Beis Din to kill Zimri, if Zimri would have turned around, he could have said, he was a Raidif. And therefore, this guy was trying to kill me, so Hashkim Hargoy. And therefore, technically, he wouldn't be sentenced to death, Zimri. V'yerma Moshe el Shaifte Yisrael v'Goymer. Halach Shivtu Shel Shimon, Eitzel Zimri. So the tribe of Shimon went to Zimri, Ben Salu, Amrlo, Hein done in din nefashis. They want to be done in nefashis. V'yatu Yoshev Shaisik, and you're gonna be silent. Let's see. Nasi Shevet Shimon Gon Shimon Sheni Lebeten Levi Shlisha Beten. Okay, so Zimri so what did Zimri do? Amid v'kibetz Chavdal Elef Yisrael. He gathered up 24,000 Jews. The Halach Eitzel Kazbi, and he went to Kazbi, who was this woman that Zimri took. Amr Lo Hishmili. So he said to her, have tashmish with me. So Amra Lo, so she said back to him, she said back to Zimri, Bas Melachani, I'm the daughter of a king. And so my father's command, that the only person I can have tashmish with is someone who is a very important person, like hypergamy. Amrullah, Afhu Nasi, I'm also a Nasi, Shevet Hu, and I'm a leader of a whole tribe. I'm actually even greater than Moshe. She was Sheni Lebeten, because he's Sheni Lebeten, Vahu Shlish Lebeten. Actually, I am Sheni Lebeten because I come from Shimon, and Moshe Rabbeinu comes from Levi, who is only Shlish Lebeten, who was the third child. So therefore, I'm more chashav than him. Vahu Shlish Lebeten. So Tavsa Biblorisa, he took her by her hair. Vavi Eitzel Moshe, and he brought her to Moshe. Amrlo Ben Amram Zu Asura O Muteris. So he didn't call him Moshe, he called him Ben Amram, which is a total lack of respect. He said, she muter aser. V'im timer Asura, if you want to tell me she's aser, Bas Yisro miatiroloch. How mattered your wife, Tzipira, right? She's also just like Kazbi. This almond made a halacha, so halacha became forgotten for a moment. Says Rashi, Moshe kodemat Torah nasa. Of course, Moshe had married her before the Torah, right? And there was no dinim like this. Ukishnas Torah kulan b'nei nayach hayu. We're all b'nei nayach. V'nichnasul kol mitzvahs. V'hi imahem v'gerim rabim shel erev rav. So obviously this was something in which was allowed for Moshe, but not for him. So Moshe forgot this whole concept of Kanayim Poigenbo. Nisalma Mena Halacha. So go, everyone started crying. They were crying. Then it says, V'yar Pinchas ben Elazar. So Pinchas ben Elazar saw something. So what did he see? So Omarav Ra Maisa, he saw what was going on with Zimri and Cosby. V'niskar halacha, and he remembered the halacha of Kanayim Poigenbo. Amrlo Achi Abi Abba Lo Kachlu Matenu Biradcha. I can't even show what this word is. Mihar Sinai. Is this not what was learned in the Torah? It's Torah Secha. Biradtcha. Let me see over here if there's a Rashi that has a better print. When you came down from Har Sinai, maybe that is what it does mean. You read Biradtcha me Har Sinai. You came down from Har Sinai. Haboyel es kusis kanayim poigenbo. He told us that. Armelo. So he said, Karne de igrata ihu lahavi parvanka. The one who reads the letter, he's the one who should carry it out. So since you're the one that said it, you're the one that should do it. Shmuel Omer, so that's what he saw. Second answer, Shmuel Omer, Rosh ein chachma vein tvuna vein ne'etzan neged Hashem. K'makam she'yishchol Hashem ein cholkin kavod rav. So when there's a disgrace of Hashem's name, so then that's it. Chil Hashem is not acceptable. So he stood up. And even if it would be a bizayon for him to do what he did, and it's embarrassing, doesn't matter, he still stood up and did what he did. It says Rashi Lefikach, Hara Pinchas halacha b'fnei Rabbo, even though normally he shouldn't have paskin kanayim poigenbo in front of his Rabbi and Moshe, lo himtin lito reshus b'Moshe, shel yira horoyim yimudu hater esakusis. That was the reason why he spoke up. He did this. Rav Yitzchak Omer Rebbe Lezer, what happened? Ra Shabam Malach, he saw an angel, the Hishchis Ba'am, that was killing the Jewish people, or going to wipe out the Jewish people. So that's what he saw. Okay, let's look at a couple of questions. Question 11. Oimrle ben Amram Zusur Zumateres Yim Taimer Asura Bas Yisra Mi Hatira Law. So who mattered her? So Ma be'emes haya ha'heter shel Moshe b'bas Yisrael. So he says, Kaidem Matan Torah nasa. It was before Matan Torah. Shenas the Torah kum b'nei noyachayu v'nichnas l'chal mitzvah sohay imahen. Question 12. Vayar Pinchas. So what did Pinchas see? So one answer is, he saw three answers. Either he saw the Maisa of Kazbi and Zimri, and he remembered the halach of Kanayim Poigenbo. He remembered in Chachmei and Tvuna, and therefore he was able to basically paskin even in front of his Rebbe, even though that's supposed to be Mar Hara Bifnei Rabbo. Or he saw this Malcham Aves, the Hishchis Ba'am, that was basically destroying the Klal Yisrael. Okay. But Yaakov mitayich so he got up, v'yikach roimach b'yado, he took a spear, v'kan she'ein nichnas l'bali b'kli zayin l'beis hamedrash. You're not to bring weapons into a base medrash. So it's interesting. A shul is, unfortunately, it's like a soft zone. It could be a dangerous place. Baruch Hashem, we have security by shuls now. Sholaf shinna v'henich b'unkaloi. So he took his blade and he put it by his clothes. V'hoyo, as we continue to pay Beis Mud Beis, it continues to describe what happened over here. Nishan v'hoylech al mekol, he was leaning on his staff. Kivan she'agia etzel shifter shel Shimon, when he got to the tribe of Shimon, Amar heichem etzinu sheshifter shel Levi gadol shel Shimon. How do we find that Shevet Levi is greater than Shimon? Amar hanichuloi, leave him alone. Afhu laso srachav nichnas. He's also here to do his needs. In other words, he's here to have tashmish or to maybe worship the Baal Peor. Regardless, he basically spoke in a way that made them think he was one of them. Hatiru Perushin as a davar. So they basically allowed him to go in. Says Rashi, Shlohi Makirin boy b'nei shivta shilharguba. He obviously didn't want them to see that he had a weapon that was going to kill. So Koloimer atem mafkirin atzmachem achar b'nois moav. You're mafkir yourself by b'nois moav. Ani lama lo esa kimoischem. Why can't I do like you? Are you greater? Shea Pirish Vatahar Neris Makulchem. Kivan Shamokain, once they heard this, Amar Hanichal Alim alone, Lichanis Lakuba, Shav Hu Roitza Kimoisenu. He wants what we want, he wants Tashmish, which is Srachav, Hitter Perushim Asadavar, Vade Mutter Lasos Kain. It must be allowed. Shari Pinchas Asa Kimoisenu. Pinchas is doing what we're doing. So they're like, wow, this is amazing. If Pinchas is able to have tashmish with Benois Moav, so certainly we're allowed to. Obviously, that's not what's going to end up happening over here. He end up killing. Rav Yochanan, Shisha Nisim Nasuloi Pinchas. 6 miracles ended up happening to Pinchas. on that day. Echad shahaylu l'zimra l'froish l'pirish. As we said, the only time he had a right to kill him is only while he's b'shas tashmish. He could have, if he stopped for a second, then he wouldn't have been allowed to kill him. The echad shahaylu l'daber v'diber. Zimri could have spoken up and screamed, but he didn't. If he screamed, then the people that were around would have killed Pinchas. Ve'echad shekivin b'zachrusai shel ish v'nakvusa shel isha. That he placed the spear exactly by the genitalia of the man and the woman while they were having tashmish, and the spear went right through both of them in that way. Ve'echad shaloi nishmatu min haroimach. They didn't slip off his spear. Ve'echad shabal malach, an angel came, ve'gvia es hamashkev, and lifted up the lintel above the door so that you would be able to get their bodies through. Ve'echad shabal malach, the malach came v'hishchis ba'am, and basically he wiped out all those people that were causing problems, that could have caused him problems. Ba v'chavtan lifnei hamakim, and he threw them down in front of the place, in front of Hashem, al elu yipul chavdalad elf Yisrael. For these people, 24,000 people should fall. Shenem rayu amesim and gave Esrim v'arboim elaf. V'hainu dechsiv v'yamad Pinchas v'yafalel, that he Pinchas stood there in judgment. Amar Belezav v'yispalel will never el v'yafalel. Doesn't say that he davened. Malamed kaviyachol she'asa plilus. He said like a wonderment to Hashem. Big Shumalchi Asharis Ladachboy. He basically, the Malch Asharis were not happy with the way that he presented himself before Kadosh Baruch Hu in such a brazen manner. Leave him alone. Kanai ben Kanai, who he's a kanoi. Meshiv Chema ben Meshiv Chema. So because he's Meshiv Chema ben Meshiv Chema, who's this? So Rashi says, Aharon b'maisa de Kairach. We find that the story of Kairach, that Aharon had a similar disposition with regard to their punishment, as it says, Ki yetzi haketzev v'ksiv v'yitenes hakatayris. Okay, hischil shvatim mavazinaiso, and all of a sudden people started second guessing what he did. They said, Risim ben puti zeh shapitim avi imo egelum avodas kachavim. Look at this guy. He's related to Yisro, because Pinchas, you had the father. His father was Pinchas ben Elazar ben Ahara Nakayin. So, of course, is linked to Moshe, to Yisro, because it says Lakach ben B'nais Yisro. They say Elazar ben Aaron Lakach lo ben B'nais Putiel. Elazar ben Aaron took from the daughters of Putiel as a wife, and Putiel is Yisro. V'haring nasi shevim Yisrael, he's going to kill a yid. What is he right? What right does he have? Look at where he comes from. Ba'al of Yahachsu Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKayin. To say no. Even if it's true, he's linked to Aharon HaKayin. Amalei Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe. Hiktim l'shalom. He should be granted with peace. Never l'chein. Never l'hinni nice l'as brisi shalom. V'roi kapara. Zu shetehei b'chaperes v'halechas l'oilam. That he caused basically kapara through his actions throughout the entire world, as the Rashi quotes the pasuk, "Mabris kunas oilam tachas asher kini lelokav yichaper." Remember Nachman Rav Ma'anech. What does it mean in Mishnah when it says zarzir mosnayim, regarding a zarzir in its thighs, otayish melech elokum yimoy. 20, whether this is exact, Dalme is 424 bias this Russia had on that day. So he waited until he was weak. So it says Otayish is the language of Toshash, that he was like weakened. So Otayish is like the language of weakened. Okay, but he didn't realize that God was with him. Shishim ad shenasu kibetza hamoizeres. Actually, he had tashmish 60 times until his beitzim were like withered because of so much tashmish. Says Rashi, but his balbel shechva zer shebasoicha moroi bilois. Hayisa ka'aruga malei mayim. It was like a pond filled with liquid and fluids. Omer Rav Kahana u'moishva beis saw, and there was the width of the measurement of a base saw, which again is referring to her. Tani Rav Yosef kever shalah alma, that her womb was that wide. Basically, again, of having tashmish so much. Rav Sheshis lo kizbi, obviously it's not literal, but it's referencing this act. Rav Sheshis lo kazbi shema, her name wasn't really Kazbi, ella shavilni basur shema. V'loma nikra shema Kazbi. Why was she given that name? She was deceived by the father, says Rashi. Chetziva Eloha al tishmi el gadosh behen, because her father told her that she should only have tashmish with the greatest of all these people, and this was her downfall because she was deceived by her father. Basically, davar acher Kazbi she'amru lavia kais bi amzeh, chew up this nation. That's what Kazbi shachad aisam al yodai. You should basically have them killed. Behind every inchi, bein kanil or vani shavilni. My boy bahadi kalpi dikani shalvine. My boy gafta la'ama. Says Rashi, Urvani arava deka higdula ben hagamim. This is like a willow. It's growing among the swamps. My boy vadimishum znus halchol. So what are they doing there? Certainly because of znus. Vadimishum znus halchol sham. So Rashi says, Zimri ben Salu Shoben Shoyel Ben Akanainis Shlomis Bas Suri Shaddai. These were all of his names. Kazmi Zimri al Shanasa Kibetza Hamoizus. So he was given that name Zimri like Zimris, that his beitzim were shriveled. Ben Salu al Shetzalia Avoinois Shel Mishpachtai, that says Rashi, he was Gairim Sheyiskru Visapru Lashon Lotasulu, that he caused sins upon his family. Shoyel al Shehishal Atzmo Devar Avera, he basically borrowed himself to sin. Ben Akanainis al Shiasa Maisa Kanan, he acted like a Kanani. Umashimo Shulmi ben Sarisha Daishimo. Okay. All right, let's slow down for a moment and let's see maybe another question. Let's look at TA1. Hagoynev as hakasua. I should have done this before. Mekalel b'kaisim v'boyel romas kanaim paginbo. Maha mokar lemisa bahem. What is the mokar for this? This is pei alpha mid bays. I got this 2/3 wrong. This is a very hard question. So goynev as hakasva, because it says v'yavul yiros kivolas hakaidish v'meisu. So this is TA1. Again, an incredibly difficult question to be able to know all the three sources like this. Second, I got that right. Mikal b'kaisim dainum levarachas Hashem, because it's like you're cursing Hashem. And boil ramis yichras Hashem v'koi a boil bas el nechar. When it says boil ramis, is yichras Hashem, which is on the next daf of Kichaderis uboil bas el nechar. And I got that wrong, which makes total sense, but that's what I got. Okay, question TB2. Amrle ben Amram zuasuzumateres. So what's the teret staka? How is it allowed? We saw this already. This is question TB2 on page Beis Amud Aleph. This is what I wrote. Zai kaidim matan Torah v'kulhu b'nei noyach u'motu l'nasim ashin pinchas shu achar matan Torah shezu aser. Okay, pretty good answer. Okay, let's keep on going. We're up to the 2 dots over here. Kohen shishimesh betuma. So, if you have a kohen, as the Mishnah said, that's served in with Tumah, so the Kohanim aren't going to bring to the Beis Din. Rather, in more vigilantism, the Pirchei Kahuna are basically going to take him out of the Azara and beat him up, to say the least. So let's see this next piece. So Bomani Rav Achabar Hunim Rav Sheshes Kain Shemish Batuma Chai Misa B'Dishmayim Eno Chai Misa B'Dishmayim. Is it so bad that the person should be Chai Misa B'Dishmayim or not? Well, it's pretty obvious from our Mishnah. I'm related to the Suah. Kain Shemish Batuma Eno Chal Kohanim Avin Oisel Beis Din. They don't think of the Beis Din because he's not Chai Misa's Beis Din. Ela Pirchei Kahuna Moitzin Oisel Chutz Azara. They take him out. Upoitzin as Moicha B'Gzir, and they whack him in the head. They basically kill him. He's talking about Chai B'Dishamayim. 1 second. If he's Chai B'Dishamayim, L'shavke V'Likta B'Dishamayim. So then why are they doing anything? Let the B'Dishamayim take care of it. Elamai Enu Chayiv. So you're going to tell me they're not Chai B'Dishamayim? Mi'ika Midi. Is there any situation, the Rachmana Patre, that the Torah patters V'ana Nikam V'Niktol? We're going to go and allow a person to kill? What do you mean? That sometimes, for example, you have a person that did an Avera twice. We said the same Chi of Kares. So Rachmana Patre, the Torah doesn't say you're Chai Misa, but V'anan Katlinin Le, but we still kill him. So what are you talking about? That does happen. So Rav Yirmi, Shlokish, that's B'malka Shel Krisas Askin. As we said, the Gamar Bar Katalahu. He already is Chai Misa anyway, because he's Chai Kares. Goinev Hakasua, but we have this case of someone who stole something. Well, that's a capital crime. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda b'Klisharis Askinan. As we said, it's Klisharis. For Amizal Yavel Yoris Kavalas Akadish V'Mesu. So the pasuk does say the person is Chai Misa. I'vaha Makalas Akaisim. So Atan Rav Yosef Yaka Kaisim is Kaismo. The Mischazik Mavarachas Hashem. So this is actually probably the best answer for TA1, is that it's Nischazik Mavarachas Hashem. So, in which is Yechai Misa. I have a Haboilas or Akusis. So Akru Rav Kahana Bechalmi. Remember, he sent his dream. He had a dream. The Adkre Rav Lagamri, and he ended up explaining what ended up happening. So it's not so clear whether or not this guy is Chai Misa B'Nishmayim. Esvei Hayotzeik v'Haboilel v'Poises v'Hamoilek v'Hamaganev v'Hamagashim v'Mesadir. That's a shulchan. Let's slow down. So if a person is engaged in doing all these different acts in which its purpose is for the Beis HaMikdash, for example, Hayotzek, Rashi says, Shemesh mincha, you pour oil of a mincha, you boil oil, you mix it, V'Poises, says Rashi, Pitim l'achar afiyasa, you break the mincha into pieces. For example, Rashi says, minchas machvas or marcheshes, whether it's a straight pan or a deep pan, uma'afi tanur, or directly into the oven, shehin bois afiyah, hamoilich, salt, mainif, wave, hamagish, you burn, you bring it close, says Rashi, but Karen Moravis Draimus, in the southwest corner. That's what that's referring to. Masader, and fine. Masader es shulchan. You set up the shulchan, bread. The meitivus aneres, you clean out the neres of the menorah. The kaimitz, you do kamitza, the flour offering. The makabel damim bechutz potter. So all these cases are outside of the base, outside of the azara. So it says you're potter in all these cases. Now, why would in fact you be potter in all these cases? Says Rashi, to chayiv kares el sheichit. The only times you're chayiv kares is if you did shchita outside, shchita schutz, or your male, that you brought it up there like an oila, or you did zurika. So that's what Rashi says. Only avoda that is in the middle of the procedure and has other avoda afterwards is potter. So it has to be, as Rashi says, Maha'olam yuchedeshu gemar avoda. It's only time you're chayiv kares is if it's a gemar avoda. Hakoshu gemar avoda. There has to be a gemar avoda. So all these other ones, you're potter. Which the Gemara is going to say. You're not going to be chayiv if a zar who did any of these things, even bifnim, they're not going to be chayiv misa. V'lo mishum tuma, and this is the key line. Not when it comes to a zar who is tameh, doing work in the Beis Hamikdash, which apparently also means a kohen that does work. Apparently, talking about a kohen that does work in the Beis Hamikdash. So that itself, we see clearly you shouldn't be chayiv misa. V'lo mishum mechus regadim. It's not an issue of not wearing the proper garments of the kohen. V'lo mishum rochatz yadam raglayim. If you didn't wash your hands and feet properly in the kior, in the laver. Ha mekater, if you did kamitza, you're a kaimitz and you would be chayiv. Mekater, you'd be chayiv. Now, my love, misa. Apparently, all this is talking about being chayiv misa. Right? It says lo b'azhara. This is only talking about on azhara. So says Rashi all the way down already. Makater dehavi avoda tama. When it comes to me, makater ketairis, we're talking about. When you're makter the ketairis, so there, that is the last one. Dehavi avoda is tama. Shein acharei avoda chayiv mishum tuma umay chayiv lav misa. So we see it's misa. So we say no, it's just you're chayiv. It's like a lav. As Rashi says, of lo yichalo. So my lav misa lo azhara elazar nami. Lazhara, maybe when it says a zar who does avoda is also an azhara. I've accepted a zar carve yumos, but it's not true. In this list is a zara, there's a zar, but the pasuk says he'll be killed. So how can he talk these? So they're totally separate things. So Mechlal, the yutzik uboil lav nami lo. So if all these things is a lav, so it must be that all these other things, which is not a gemar malacha, gemar avoda, you don't even get a lav. Vosanya azhara yusik aboyam anayin talmud over kadeshim yuvul yichalu. So it's not just talking about a lav, because you're talking about these. There's not even a lav. It must be this is a lav, and the other one's misa. No, min rabbanan v'kras machta b'yalma meis ve'elu hein sheba misa. It says beferish these are chay misa, and one is tamei shishimish tiyufta. So that's actually we end off with a tiyufta. Look in Taisis v'lo mishum tuma the term typically mishum. Tami shenichnas l'mikdash to be kari. So Yishomer could go in shenitma bifnim v'loisha. Okay, he didn't spend enough time there. Okay, the Rivad says that he was outside and he used a large kli that extended into the Beis Hamikdash, and he did the avoda b'chutz. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Maybe we'll see one more question, possibly. Let's see. We did question 11 and 12, and question 13. Well, maybe we did. All right, maybe we'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Yeah. Question TA2, Kohen Tameh Sha'achal Truma. We'll see that in tomorrow's daf. TB3, Ksib Parsha, Da'echel Truma, Adkan.